Why Ibrahim Traoré's survival terrified the West. NATO's secret drone strike exposed. When the sky above Burkina Faso fell silent, the world thought peace had returned. But 17 days ago, that silence was broken by a shadow, an American-made MQ-9 Reaper drone flying without permission over African soil. Its target was not a rebel base or a militant convoy, but the presidential motorcade of Ibrahim Traoré, the man who had become a symbol of Africa's defiance. Seconds before impact, fate intervened. A radar alert, a change of course, and 3 innocent lives lost instead. Official reports called it a technical error, but what if it wasn't? What if it was a message? A warning to any African leader who dares to stand independent of Western control? Tonight, we uncover what really happened that morning. The silence, the smoke, and the truth buried beneath it. Stay with us and subscribe, because this is one story they never wanted told. At 10:08 a.m., a faint signal appeared on the radar of a northern command post. The operator saw what no one wanted to believe: an unidentified aircraft moving fast, steady, silent. Within minutes, the radar confirmed its identity: MQ-9 Reaper. The same machine used in covert strikes from Yemen to Libya was now flying over African soil. Without permission, without declaration, and without reason. Traoré's convoy was moving north toward Kaya, small and discreet. No flashing lights, no sirens. He preferred to travel like his people, exposed but free. When the alert came through, the presidential security team reacted instantly, turning off the main road into a hidden valley. 90 seconds later, a missile detached from the Reaper's wing, the R9X, a weapon infamous for its precision. But that precision failed. The missile struck a civilian truck carrying water tanks. 3 lives ended instantly, 2 men and a boy. The explosion was small, but the message was enormous. The debris bore U.S. serial codes: GM114R9X-002. It wasn't a rumor or a rogue act. It was evidence. And yet, within hours, Western media stayed silent. No outrage, no headlines, no acknowledgement that a sovereign African nation had just been targeted by a foreign military weapon. When Traoré was briefed, he didn't lash out. He stood in silence for a long time before speaking one sentence that would echo through the continent. They have shown us what they fear most, not our weapons, but our independence. That night, he appeared on national television. Calm, controlled, unshaken. He promised an investigation and vowed to make every piece of evidence public. And he did. Within 24 hours, images of the wreckage, flight data, and radar logs were released. The documents showed a refueling tanker, an American KC-135, operating just outside Sahel airspace during the same window. Officially, it was part of a joint counter-terrorism exercise. Unofficially, it was the smoking gun. The people of Burkina Faso didn't need analysts to explain what they already knew. To them, the attempted strike wasn't about one man. It was about sending a message to every African nation that dared to say no. Yet, instead of fear, something else began to spread: unity. In markets, in mosques, in villages, people replayed his speech. We will not respond with missiles. We will respond with evidence. Those words turned mourning into movement. Within days, over 100 million Africans had watched the broadcast. Farmers in Mali painted his face on barns. Students in Ghana held vigils for the victims. In Lagos, people gathered in public squares to watch the footage on outdoor screens. Then came the unthinkable. 17 African nations stood together. They demanded answers. The African Union, for the first time in decades, called an emergency session. And as diplomats in Washington and Brussels dodged questions, one phrase began to rise across the continent: Africa is not a target zone. What began as an assassination attempt became the spark of a revolution in thinking. Traoré refused to answer violence with vengeance. Instead, he used transparency as his weapon. He knew that truth, once spoken, travels faster than any drone. Behind closed doors, he assembled his advisors and revealed his counterstrike, not of missiles, but of minds. The African Sovereignty Initiative. A new continental alliance built not on anger, but on architecture. 12 nations joined immediately, from the Atlantic to the Horn of Africa. Their goal: to protect one another through shared radar systems, intelligence, and data networks. Mali contributed airspace monitoring. Niger offered surveillance units. Ethiopia provided encryption technology. Together, they launched Eagle Eyes, a real-time radar grid linking African skies under African control. For the first time in modern history, Africa was watching itself, not through foreign satellites, but through its own systems. Next came the African Evidence Archive, a digital vault preserving proof of every foreign interference, every unauthorized strike, every act of exploitation. The mission was clear: to ensure that Africa's truth would never again depend on someone else's broadcast. From defense to economy, the initiative expanded. Nations agreed to redirect a percentage of their gold and oil revenues into a sovereignty fund, financing African-made drones, communication grids, and locally owned media networks. Dependence, Traoré said, is the enemy of defense. Western powers mocked it as symbolic, but on African soil, something real was happening. Independent journalists began documenting each event. Artists painted murals reading, "Not afraid to live." Students launched forums on what they called the New African Doctrine. It wasn't about revenge, it was about rebirth. Weeks later, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso announced the creation of a joint command council, a tri-nation alliance uniting intelligence and defense. Western analysts called it unorthodox. Africans called it destiny. Radar stations blinked in sync. Soldiers trained under one doctrine, and across the Sahel, people began to look at the sky not with fear, but with pride. When asked why he risked so much, Traoré answered, "If one nation stands, it is a miracle. But if many stand together, it becomes destiny." His message spread through 20 languages, through markets and schools, through phones and prayer halls. In Washington, officials labeled the incident a misunderstanding. In Paris, journalists whispered about an unfortunate miscommunication. But Africa had already decided what it believed. For every drone in the sky, there were now millions of eyes on the ground. And perhaps that was the greatest victory, not in weapons, but in awareness. From the ashes of a failed strike rose a continent's awakening. A young leader had turned survival into strategy, silence into structure, and fear into faith. Today, the skies above Burkina Faso are quiet again, but below that silence, a continent has changed. What began as an attempted assassination became a declaration of sovereignty. The drone that was meant to end a life instead ignited a movement, one built on unity, awareness, and truth. Ibrahim Traoré survived not by luck, but by leadership. He taught the world that courage is not in striking back, but in standing firm. His survival became Africa's signal, proof that even against invisible powers, faith and unity can prevail. The message is clear. The age of silence is over. Africa's skies, once watched by others, now watch for themselves. If this story moved you, share it, because every view, every voice, every truth spoken aloud helps keep the skies free and the story alive. Stay strong, stay awake, and subscribe for the next chapter of Africa's Awakening.